reveals that the human populations of Europe often remained in place for millennia, surviving the rise and fall of the empires that claimed to own them. This map visualization shows the immense disconnect between the rigid tactical borders drawn by generals and the fluid genetic data of the people actually living on the ground. If we track the Roman legions, the Germanic war bands, and the Viking fleets, a distinct pattern emerges. Invading armies could hold a territory, but they almost never erased the bloodlines of the people they conquered. Rome occupied Britain for 4 centuries. They built extensive road networks, administrative capitals, and massive fortifications to secure their northernmost frontier. Yet modern genomic studies reveal an unexpected void: the genetic markers associated with the Italian and the broader Roman Empire are virtually absent from the DNA of modern Britons. The imperial military presence in Britain likely peaked around 50,000 soldiers and administrators. That occupying force was highly diverse, drawing from Syria to Gaul, and they remained largely isolated within heavily garrisoned forts and urban centers. Outside those walls, roughly 90% of the indigenous population continued to live in rural farming communities and tribal settlements. They paid taxes to the empire, but they maintained their Iron Age social structures completely intact. Recent excavations of the Duratribe tribe in southern England provide a clear picture of how these communities operated. DNA sequencing from their cemeteries shows a society organized around matrilocality, meaning husbands moved to join their wives' kin groups upon marriage. Most members of settlement traced their lineage back to a single female ancestor. Women controlled the land and local political power, operating in direct contrast to the strict male-dominated hierarchy of Roman law. The imperial legion successfully dictated the political boundaries, but the indigenous female lineages absorbed the occupation and preserved their local ancestry for generations. We see a similar dynamic on the continent along the Rhine River. This is where the Roman expansion famously stalled against the Germanic tribes. The early Germanic societies were driven by the comitatus, a martial culture where chieftains secured loyalty by rewarding their retainers with plunder. This economic need for resources drove constant raiding against the organized defenses of the empire, but the border was never a solid wall. The violence was frequent, yet it operated alongside a massive, porous trade network. Germanic tribes supplied slaves, furs, and Baltic amber to the south, receiving Roman wine, glass, and silver in return. As the Western Empire fractured, these tribes didn't simply cross the Rhine to destroy the local populations. They moved to settle as landowners, actively adopting and preserving existing Roman administrative frameworks and infrastructure to maintain their newly acquired wealth. The result was a resulting successor states functioned as political hybrids, grafting Germanic leadership onto the surviving Roman legal and tax systems. Centuries later, the Viking Age brought a sudden tactical expansion across the North Sea as Scandinavian raiders targeted the coastal settlements of Britain and Ireland. This scatterplot tracks the DNA admixture from Irish Viking burials. It shows a starkly different profile from the historical stereotype. With the genomes clustering heavily alongside local Irish and British genetic markers, sequencing of prominent Irish Viking burials, including a heavily armed warrior found in County Galway, shows that many of these individuals had brown hair, dark eyes, and predominantly indigenous ancestry. To be a Viking in this era was often a job description rather than a strict ethnic identity. Native Irishmen and Britons adopted the customs, weapons, and burial practices of the raiders, fully integrating into the seafaring culture. You can see this fusion in the physical artifacts they left behind. The Hiberno-Norse art style emerged in these coastal towns, seamlessly weaving Scandinavian animal motifs with traditional Irish metalwork and woodcarving. The Scandinavian arrivals didn't eradicate the local population, they assimilated into a new Hiberno Norse identity, embedding their lineage into the urban centers they founded and the gold and silver objects they left behind. When we look across the history of the continent, the pattern holds. The Romans, the Germanic tribes, and the Vikings all successfully redrew the political borders and built new infrastructure. Genomic studies show that even the arrival of Celtic culture across Bronze Age Europe didn't require mass migration. Instead, languages and technologies moved along established trade routes connecting Britain and Ireland to the continent, much like the way modern Turks speak a Turkic language while being genetically descended from ancient Anatolians. We rely heavily on texts written by the political victors, and those authors frequently exaggerated their conquests, claiming total dominion to project absolute power. But the physical evidence ignores those borders entirely. This is the Cuerdale Hoard, wealth buried in the early 10th century. It contains thousands of silver pieces mixing Anglo-Saxon coins, Carolingian fragments, Irish hack silver and objects traded from the Byzantine Empire. Armies have the power to conquer a map, but the true history of Europe is found in the soil, which proves that the conquered populations almost always absorb their invaders.